Do you know the billionaire that sold Kinko's, the printing company, to FedEx, the shipping company, for $2.4 billion? If not, don't worry, I didn't know him either until we met, and I just interviewed him in our private mastermind that entrepreneurs invest tens of thousands of dollars to get access to. And now I'm going to give away the interview 100% for free. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So Paul, why don't you, if you had to tell your story in 5 minutes, what would you say? Just to like bring everyone up to speed here.
Okay, real fast.
From zero to I sold my company to FedEx for billions of dollars.
I can't read well. I'm not mechanical. I'm extremely restless. I was unemployable. So I knew I was going to have my own business. My parents are Lebanese and all my extended family, everybody had their own business. I never knew a human being that had a job. So working for other people was out of the question. I noticed when I started working, I had a vegetable stand and my dad made women's clothes. And over time, my vegetables rotted and my dad's fashion went out of style. So I looked at the paper and I thought, wow, what a cool thing. It doesn't disintegrate. I can use it tomorrow. So I decided then and there, I would never go into business with inventory. That's what your businesses are. You don't fight your inventory. I also wanted to have a business that I could make money while I was sleeping. So this business I started. You dialed a button, pushed a button, and rang a register. It wasn't complicated. And I want to say, you know what a chemist is?
Yeah.
Chemist is somebody you work with that knows how to take money and turn it into shit. I definitely worked with some chemists. But that was what my job was, to work with a chemist. But I had a business that I could make money while I was sleeping. And I prided myself that if I didn't go to work, things went beautifully without me. But whatever I did every day, it made it better. And so that's where my ADD and my restlessness helped. I was constantly wandering, looking for the best ideas. I was never burdened with an office job. And my job was to seek opportunity. And so I was lucky enough to be conscious enough to be with time. And I never was preoccupied with what I had to do yesterday. I would never have a lot of administrative duties. At the height of my career, I might have had 8 hours of work to do a week of administrative duties. And that was too many. And if you think of my business, what I did is most people won't brag, but I know how to get out of work. Most people will say, oh, I worked 80 hours a week. Bullshit. You own your business. You own it. It doesn't own you. You try to get out of any responsibilities as possible, and your desk is clear to see where the hell the future is. And I just like to see a show of hands among all of you. You don't have to show your hands up. It'd be nice.
You guys can raise your hands.
Can anybody there work 8 hours a day? Put your hands up.
Pretty much all of us.
Okay. 10 hours.
We all have high-paying jobs. 10,
12, 14. Can any of you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Absolutely not.
All right. Your savings and your ideas work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, wasn't my business my savings account and my ideas?
Yeah.
All right. So I followed my mother's advice. She said, in your 20s, try everything. In your 30s, start figuring out what you do best. In your 40s, make money from what you do best. In your 50s, try not to do so much. And I didn't do much. I sold my business when I was 50. And so, and I was very lucky because I did only one of the capable things. My nickname's Kinko. One of the only capable things I ever did in my life was Kinko's. I was always aware that I could have very easily been seduced by this business person. And I wanted to keep Paul in the equation. And I purposely, all my life, I wanted to keep Paul. I didn't want to be seduced by whoever this business perceptive person was. And so when I retired or repurposed at 50, it wasn't hard for me. I had so many other interests in life that it wasn't the big struggle a lot of people have when they try to repurpose their life in retirement. And I like teaching school. I like talking to you all. It's nice.
So Paul, tell us how you came up with the idea for Kinko's?
Oh, okay. I've spoken a lot of pot, dude, in college. And I made a deal with this group. Once again, my advantages. I can't read or write well. So I made a deal with this group at USC. If they wrote the paper, I'd get them Coca-Cola and pizza, and I'd do all the errands. So they wrote it, but they made a document this thick. And I had to get it copied. It came about $45 to copy it. So I thought, well, that's kind of a good business. And there's always people in line. So I thought, wow, this is where the pot comes in. Hey, dude, if they're copying here at USC, why wouldn't those same people copy at Santa Barbara? Now, did that take a lot of rumination? Would you say students here and students there copy the same? Okay, so that's how I started. And then I had a little store with about 100 square feet. The first day of school, you can notice everybody needs a notebook and pen, don't they? I put my notebooks and pens on the sidewalk. I sold $2,000 a day the first day of school of notebooks and pens. And then I actually, looking back, I could have ended up being a Staples rather than just specialize in copying. Because that's the way it could have happened. But I was flexible enough to know where the band was playing. And that copy machine was a simple, easy business.
Wow. What would you say was your biggest challenge in growing Kinko's?
My biggest challenge is people. When we've opened the first 40 stores, they're small, little locations. And the leader of the store with 2 and 3 workers in them, the leader was a very good, knew a lot about things. They didn't really know how to motivate people. The business I left 30 years later, the leaders of the stores, they had 40 and 50 workers. Do you think I wanted somebody to know a lot about things or not a lot about how to manage people?
The latter.
Well, my big problem was we would promote the people who had to do things, and they'd have nervous breakdowns because they couldn't lead people. And I think what you have to do in life is go to your bathtub and talk to your rubber ducky and say, hey, dude, do I want to be responsible for other people, or do I want to do it all myself? Do I like eating my alphabet soup alphabetically? And if you choose that, that's your pathway, but don't try to lead people. You'll have a nervous breakdown. And there are people who like to manage, tinker and do things and do everything perfectly, where there are people like me that can deal with imperfection of other human beings.
So if people was the biggest challenge, figuring out how to put the right people at the right place, who to promote.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Oh no, get the right people. Set the circumstance, manage your environment. You put them in. I was really good at getting out of work, so I had them all competing with each other. You just have to set the environment right. What happened for me in my business? It has, and this is what you maybe should do in yours. A customer would walk in, they didn't know what the hell they wanted. They'd talk to a counter worker. It might be a high school kid, but this is a bank president saying, could you help me with this project? The counter worker would suggest, the counter worker would be involved with that process of making that job, and they'd get the thank you from the customer. And more importantly, the work they did, they could see the direct benefit for humanity. They would help somebody get a job. There's a lost little girl in Spokane, Washington. The family came to the police first and us second. These are powerful connections to the world. Helping somebody with some project that's going to cure sickle cell anemia, or these are all the things we did every day. So our workers felt that they were improving life and felt the connection to the world. And that was the environment. And I just saw that going on. And I said, That is such a perfect relationship. All I have to do is get the hell out away from that relationship. And I believe that the best definition of management is management removes obstacles. The only reason you have a boss in the world is to make your job easier. Not a lot of big shots, they can't wait to include it in every damn thing, go to the office and burden themselves with stuff that the people can figure out themselves, and manage the environment. And you care about the whole person. You care if they have health insurance. You care about their children being sick. That's where I was. I was all in. I'm maybe giving too many concepts.
No, this is great, Paul. Keep going.
You only do 3 things in business. It's not complicated. Balance your checkbook, motivate your workers, and understand where your customers are going. And that's it. And I focused on that.
How did you manage when you started scaling Kinko's and growing very, very fast? You know, it's probably easy to get distracted or overwhelmed with that level of growth. How did you manage that scale?
You know, how did you manage it when you were 4 years old to being 21 years old? You just did it, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, did you have any, like, it just happens, doesn't it? So every day, so you say, is there a grand plan? I redefine my grand plan every 2 months, 3 months. You know what you do with a business plan? After you make it, you throw it away and you write a new one in 2 months.
What was the process of selling to FedEx like?
No.
Bad question.
I didn't want it. I was a subchapter S, and I was in finance class, and I maybe got a C in it. But the guy talked about subchapter S corporations, and now they could call them LLCs. And I thought, wait, you could, if I go public and take your money, I got to pay that layer of taxes, plus whatever I make left over, the government wants me to pay another layer of taxes. And for me to pay these extra taxes, I get to get aggravated by all these shareholders. I never wanted to be part of the public company. And can you tell that my personality wouldn't necessarily get along with the country club kind of people in the board of directors? I knew I wouldn't get along with those kind of people.
It would have to make you work a little bit.
No, fuck them, not work. I don't believe in work. I believe in hard work. For me, is what keeps you up in the middle of the night. And I was a hard worker, if that's the definition. What keeps you up in the middle of the night is what you should be thinking about.
What should you be thinking about?
How are you going to pay your bills? Where my customer is headed? I got a laser printer coming to kick my ass. What do I do about it? Can we raise prices? I can't tell you how many sleepless nights I had in all those subjects. How do I pay my bills? How can I get over that fuck up that guy did and posting that $500,000 deposit on the 31st and the 1st, and I thought I had $500,000 more in the checkbook than I really did. Would you think that was a sleepless night? Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of sleepless nights.
How do you How do you empower your employees to be better leaders?
Let them figure it out for themselves. You know, people, I found I never would go to one of my stores unannounced, because if I did, it would show that the manager, I didn't trust him. So I would always show absolute respect to my managers, and I would never go unannounced. I think the best way to, and then I became inaccessible. How do you empower leaders? They just can't bother you and bug you for silly things. Like, what is the problem here? And if people would come to me with problems, like a turd, I'd say, well, how would you solve that problem? I don't want your problem. I want what you think your solution is. And they detected it would irritate me to have silly problems brought to my attention. I'll give you an example where I got it from. I had 7 stores. The manager called me up and he goes, you know, Paul, I got a bounced check in the mail. What do I do? And I thought, what do? You go after the guy who wrote you the check. And I thought, now who's stupid, me or him? I shouldn't be taking those kind of phone calls. They should be able to figure it out for themselves. or somebody else in the office can answer that stupid question. But you'll find subordinates can't wait to give you their turds. Don't let them. Like if I used to be in the office and I'd walk down the hallway and somebody would ask me a question, and I'd say, and then they would have the fact that they asked you a question, 3 months later, if it's good or bad, they'll say, you know, I told you about that. Well, you just asked me a question. I didn't tell you to do anything. They'll do that to you. Wean them from you.
Was there a big decision you made early on that you feel like changed everything for you, or really resulted in some of the major success that you had later on?
No, maybe I paid attention in finance class and the guy said liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. I was always liquid. One of the main decisions I made is I really enjoyed projecting my cash. If there's anything in that business I enjoyed, it was the money. And I really enjoyed projecting the cash. I mean, the best way to destroy your business is to...
You didn't like copying machines, did you?
I didn't know how to run them. I wasn't mechanical. There's most of the machines in those stores I never knew how to run. But the employees didn't know that.
That's funny. Do you feel like being
Give an example. I had many campaigns with the field. I was always at war with somebody. I would walk into the stores and we had uptight and confused customers. They didn't know what the hell they wanted, and they wanted it yesterday. So if we did at the front door, if things were out of order, it's like if I had a big zit right here, you look at my zit, wouldn't you? You look at me. Or I had a Chinese, Japanese with a pebble of rice here, people across one like that. You look at the little imperfections. So at the front door, I'm dealing with an uptight and confused person. I wanted that front door to be immaculately perfect, visually, everything in its place. The people working there looked like Republicans. They dressed in a tie. Now, my war with the field was I would go to the store and inevitably the sense of balance was from the cash register out, not the front door in. You might have tried it, and you have to view your business from the front door, or in your business, the customer orientation first, not the back door. If you listen to your executive too much and your people, they'll always give you the back door talk. You know what the hell's going on with your customers. I spend most of my time talking with customers.
Listen to customers and value their opinion.
Well, I don't know where you guys are in your organization and how much innovation you have to do, but we had a lot of innovation. And I found that leaders are in the future, owners in the future, managers in the present, and accountants are in the past. And I'm worried about tomorrow. My job was to worry about tomorrow. It wasn't to worry about today.
We've got some more questions. Do you think that being obsessed is necessary for success? Is that valuable, or is that a good trait, a bad trait?
Obsessed, yeah, probably is a bad trait, but what are you going to do? You got a family to feed. You got, the downside is so horrendous. I guess you'd call it obsessed. But I never took phone calls I never did any work after 5 o'clock, and I never worked on weekends. I never had a phone. And if people called me on the weekend, I would let them know that's inappropriate. Was that be obsessed?
Did you do that from day one, or after you got a certain level of success?
Oh, well, after I started the business, I was in my 5th year at USC. So I was going back and forth, and I'd work Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And I kept thinking, how come I have so many problems Tuesdays and Thursday mornings? So the counter workers would say, well, the owner will be there Tuesday morning. So after 3 months, I hired a manager. I never worked behind the counter after that. And wasn't I managing CEOs at that point? I'm the owner managing chief executive officers. I was not a good worker, a good executive in my own company. I was a good owner. And you only need one owner and one human being like me in an organization. It's a good thing. And I was a very good owner. That's I would brag. I was a good owner. An owner worries about tomorrow. And because you have to understand, most executives or most of your workers are always upset with themselves for not doing what they didn't do yesterday. I didn't have that burden of yesterday.
So when you were an owner, like what was the skill? Like what was the thing that you did as an owner that was so useful to the organization?
Nag the fuck out of them. Did your mother nag you?
All the time.
Yeah.
All
Was
the
it,
time.
in the long run, did you pretend like you didn't hear her, but did you hear her?
I just said, yeah.
But you way down deep, you did hear her.
Oh yeah.
It was my job.
Yeah. And it almost sounds more like, maybe I'm crazy, but it sounds more like you were just afraid of the failure in the future and stopping that from happening.
Well, you have to remember, somebody's already, if your dad makes women's clothes, you understand people are out there to kick your ass.
That's so funny because that's what my parents' business is. They own a women's clothing store.
My dad has a factory that made those clothes.
I probably bought them.
Yeah.
Wow, small world.
But you understand how, if you're in that business, you understand people are, they're always worried about the competition. And so I was always, if I went to one of my locations, I went to 5 of the competitors. And what really pissed me off a lot, you have to remember, people they're not children, the employees a little bit. They want to be comforted. So I go to the location, I talk to the person driving with. I go, oh, Lawrence, Kansas, who's the competitor? And they would say, oh, they're terrible. Nobody likes them. It would thoroughly piss me off. I'd say, the fact that they have one customer means somebody likes them. I want to know why that one customer likes that business. So I'd go to that business. I go to all the competitors, and then I go to our location. And another vantage point I always had is I always was across the street. I was never in my business. I was across the street looking in saying, I'm going to kick his ass. I always had the vantage point of what would I do to myself to beat me, to make the customer come from me to them. And that was what my fantasy was every day. What did I need to do to prevent the competition from wiping me out?
Paul, as you grew your wealth, how did you decide how to invest in your own personal self-growth?
Oh, I take vacations. What do you mean? I went to school. I took every year I would go to some one of those kind of executive programs. I went to Harvard for 3 weeks for 3 years. Me, the average out of high school, Harvard man. Come on. Now I go to University of Virginia for mergers and acquisition, but I spent a week a year in a classroom.
That's very cool. In terms of,
I believe in that, to get away, talk to other folks, and be in a setting of learning.
in terms of your team, who are your most important people and maybe your most entrusted people as well as you grew and as you scaled Kinko's?
People ringing a register with my name on the deposit. The ringers of the registers, yeah, they were my favorite. And everybody knew in the company that was, I'm only catering to that manager and those workers in those stores. Anybody, they were all fuel for the fire with me.
What difference do you see in the market over the what? Naomi, I don't know if you're still here. Can you ask your question?
Oh, what differences have you noted in the market, just in general, over the course of the progression of your business? I mean, I guess I'm not.
Well, if you're taking the bird's eye view, I had this little machine called the Xerox copy machine. It was just a mother lode of profit. And I saw the laser printer coming after me, and I thought, good time to get out of Dodge. So I sold my business right when everybody thought we were the greatest things since sliced bread. I knew we weren't. It was hard for me to pretend like we had a future when I knew we didn't.
So what do you, but from a bird's eye view of just in general, I guess what I'm getting at is things must be just by definition different now than they were when you got started. It's just, time and change. do you see what have you noted that's maybe different about someone who say started a business from 10 years after you did, or 20 years after you did, or
Similar business?
further?
I think they would be an idiot. You don't see copy shops around the corner. It's an obsolete business.
But on a bigger scale, not necessarily the specific business you went into, but just in general, starting on your own, the entrepreneurial angle, basically.
Oh, you can see it all the time. Just keep your eyes open. Now, I'm not one of these, like you go to you check in a hotel. It's kind of stupid. You got to go to the front counter and get the key and all that. I mean, I don't understand why you just can't do it on the phone. Where every time I pay, the waitress comes to me and I got to give her the credit card. And she goes back and comes back. I think that's stupid. You could do it every day. You go, you talk to a registrar for a public school and you say, what's your biggest problem? And they'll say, well, here in Santa Barbara, we're not compatible with the computer system, the registrar at that office. We're not compatible with the Santa Barbara Unified School District system. Now, shouldn't there just be one system? So there's so many things. And if you want to be in the computer type of thing, a teacher assigns somebody to go to a room to receive some extra credit lecture. I mean, with this kind of software that you know what the student is, you can actually see if they're at that conference.
So it sounds like you're saying just pay attention to every opportunity and need that needs, like every gap that needs filling, and jump on it is what's like what you did.
Busy. Don't clutter your mind with a lot of busy bullshit. If you're out there observing, observe. And my suggestion to you all, you busy people at your age, take an hour a day of being stupid. The world will still orbit around the sun with you not being involved. Take an hour a day to really say, what the hell did I think about? What was that all about? And if you're really observing, your stomach's going to say, I saw something today. And if you get a good night's sleep, it's going to come to you. It'll work itself out.
Paul, after you achieved your financial success and finances weren't an issue, right? You weren't worried about the bills. What did keep you up at night? What did you start to shift your focus on? Maybe what do you think about today? What keeps you up at night now? Maybe nothing.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and last month I had 3 surgeries, 2 for my back and 1 for my heart. That kept you up. What keeps me up at night? Nothing really. And about
like a baby.
About the oxygen and all the world and all that, I enjoy it. Nothing really.
That kind of relates to my question, actually, because you're talking about how you never you wouldn't work past 5 p.m. and you didn't work on weekends. So it sounds like you had a good work-life balance. But when you were building your business, I mean, I don't know about you, but in my company, there's always things that need to be done. Like when I go to sleep, there's always stuff that needs to be done that should have been done yesterday, right? So how did you, I mean, did that keep you up at night, or were you like, okay, well, these things have to be done tomorrow. These people are going to have to wait. You know, how did you do that?
It goes back to your definition.
Okay.
Do you make money when you're sleeping or when you're working? If you're working, you don't own your own business. If you're sleeping and you're making money, that's when you own your business. If you
Ooh. I love that. Thank you.
One of the big shifts that Paul made me see is a lot of us are in high-paying jobs.
Exactly.
And it's important to become a business owner, not be a highly paid employee of your own business.
Yeah, that's basically it. Are you the owner? Does it own you, or do you own it? No. If you're the owner,
That's good.
Mr. Cliche here.
Paul, do you feel like public speaking is a requirement to be a leader like yourself? Do you think that was important?
No,
Being good.
I can't read. The classes I did the best with public speaking. I enjoy it. but it's an acquired taste. My recommendation is don't read. Are you talking about techniques of being a good public speaker?
No, one of the people in the Zoom asked, and I'm just reading their question. They just asked if you felt like public speaking was really important to be a good leader.
I don't know, probably not necessarily. I think there are a lot of boring people in the computer business that have done very well.
Paul, if you let me ask another question. If you were 18, 19 years old again, back to teenage years, knowing what you know now, what would you do to be successful in business? What would you do differently?
I'd keep my eyes open and save my money. It's not really confusing. It really is not. If you have a savings account, you have more opportunities. And if you get addicted to savings from a young child, you'll have some sort of capital to take advantage of an idea. But as savings, if your parents didn't addict you to savings, they didn't do a really good job. Here's how I did it with my kids. When they were 5 years old, I gave them $5 a week. They had to put $3 in the envelope for spending, $1 for giving, and $1 for saving. So if I took them someplace, I'd say, Dad, can you buy me that cotton candy? They go, no, you got your money. And they wouldn't want to spend it. It shows some self-discipline. I take them to the bank, and they knew I didn't give a damn about their school grades. I wanted to know that they were addicted to savings and knowing what to do with their money. And to this day, my kids are pretty good. They're very good with money. You really have a good sense of money. But I think as a parent, you have to make sure your child is great in school, become a doctor, lawyer, some bullshit, architect, or they're really good with their money. But they can't be half-assed either one.
Maybe you put one child on one direction, the other one in the other direction,
My kids, my mother, if you want to know my mother, I'd come home with all my standard report cards, 2 C's, 1 D, and an F. And my mother would have just signed the report card. And she'd say, honey, the A students work for the B students. The C students run the businesses. The D students dedicate the buildings. So she didn't care. But then I found out about junior college, and I went there. And then my mother motivated all of us to go to college by saying, doesn't it look like fun? I went to school because I didn't want to go to Vietnam, and it was fun. And I learned a lot. I don't think these teachers ever thought I was paying that much attention, but I really was. And at business school, I teach school now. I've been rambling. And I don't understand how little these students are retaining from their education. And there are so many nuggets in that education of mine at SC and business school that really apply. I used it all my life.
Speaking about financial education, what are the best ways to educate yourself on finance outside of the university? Would you
watch baseball? Now, is it easier to steal second base than home?
Pretty sure.
Were you not even positive of that? Are you positive?
I don't know. I played basketball, Paul. I don't know. I played basketball growing up, not baseball.
How many people have you ever known that stole home?
Someone else answer this question, please, and save me, because Paul's looking at me like I'm crazy.
But it's easier, just implicitly. It's easier to steal second base.
Is it? Okay. That's good to know.
What base are you all? You probably are all on first base. You can stick your neck out because you're young, you've got a future. So you can steal second base. I'm on third base going home. Who wants an old man to run a business or do a job? I'm in third base. I got to be very defensive of my money. You're in first base, you can stick your neck out. I can't. So think of how baseball might apply to how your investment horizons go.
How do you steal home?
You don't. You just don't steal home. That means you better be safe and secure in third base, a bunch of savings and apartment buildings that are paid off and high dividend paying stocks. Because money 20 years from now, what does it mean to me? I'm in a graveyard at 94 years old. I'm going to say, oh, wow, that's really cool. I got all that money in my graveyard. No, I need it now.
How did you invest all your money, you know, after?
Oh, if anything, I was not, my business, the business that I'm known for, I didn't train to do that. I trained to know what to do with my savings account. So all my life I've bought stocks or did apartment buildings or invested in different businesses. That's just what I do for a living. And I had my own, with Kinko's, I started lots of different businesses. Most of them failed, but I started them.
So you do commercial real estate now?
No, I did some development.
Did you self, like, well, I know you owned it, it didn't own you. Did you put people in place to manage it, or did you invest into like a syndication?
Commercial real estate is, people make things so complicated. If you could not do any arithmetic after 5th grade, you'll be a great business person. Real estate is very simple. It's all 5th grade arithmetic. I don't know how the hell we put the X's and Y's. I've never used an X or a Y in my life, and I've never used the Pythagorean theorem. I use addition, multiplication, division, subtraction. So you buy it. Okay, if you say the prevailing rent for a location is $100,000 a year, and you know that the interest rates probably right now, that $100,000 would be $1.5 million to buy that income stream. And you know the construction, the land and construction cost is $800,000. You'd buy it, you'd do it in a heartbeat. Just basic arithmetic, wouldn't you? Well, I did a lot of that kind of commercial real estate development. And plus I had a dream, but I got 50. I was going to put Kinko's, which is open 24 hours a day, next to a 24-hour day coffee shop, next to 24-hour dry cleaners. Because how many people, why should you be subject to the hours of the dry cleaners? So I did the 24-hour dry cleaners. I mean, it was successful. And at the coffee shop, I made about 20 of them. But and I tried to then coordinate with our real estate people. It was kind of hard. But my dream was all these 24-hour strip centers up across all the freeways. You always know they're open. Get a copy. I can get my dry cleaning.
Paul, what do you feel is the most important skill for a person to have to own their business instead of being owned by it? How do you escape?
It depends on the business. It depends on the business.
A lot of us are in a service-based business, which makes it hard, right? But
that's right. But you got to take, I can't answer it. You got to go to your rubber ducky and say, how can I get out of work? What is it that I don't have to do? Then you go take your bathtub, talk to it and say, do I really need to take an extra phone call? Couldn't that person have figured it out for themselves? And then set systems up, set compensation systems up that the workers are competing against each other, not against you. And don't be afraid to share financial information with your workers.
Paul, what is your biggest regret in business? Do you have any?
Yeah, I didn't buy Apple. I didn't buy Microsoft. I have a lot. Do I have a lot?
Were you planning to buy it, and then did you have it loaded, the order set up? And
I have a guy who I work with in 2003. Apple herself for $7 a share, and had $4 a share in cash. And I told him not to buy it. That might have been a bad decision.
Potentially, yeah. You really wouldn't have had to even own a business at that point, but
no, I never want to have it. I never want to be owned by anybody. I never want to be a slave to somebody else. Never. And I really never wanted. I always knew all my life. That's why I got bad grades in school. I was going to have my own business. I didn't really care about grades. I want to ask you all a question. If your child that's 5 years old comes home with a painting from school, what do you say to him? Somebody's got to have an answer there.
What was the question again? What was the question again?
If your 5-year-old child comes home with a painting from school, What do you say to them?
You tell them it's great.
Absolutely the worst thing you could say. Because what we hit by saying that is you tell the child to please others rather than please themselves. What you should say is, tell me about the painting and why did you use blue there? We, in our education system, especially with that horrible George Bush and Ted Kennedy getting that No Child Left Behind, we have produced a bunch of people pleasers. It's about time people start pleasing themselves. What is in it for me? What do I want out of life? I would say the system is worse than when after I with you guys. You guys are a little more people pleasers than I was.
Yeah, but I think it's very hard to change the system to get to that point.
What?
It's
Yeah, I
hard
feel
to
like
change this.
it's hard, very hard to change the system to get it to that point after so many years of
Oh,
just following always the same system.
I don't get me wrong. What did you learn after 5th grade you really needed to know? Like, I'm not really using areas of circles, all that. It's all extra credit. And if you go to school, they make it a learning thing, not a teaching. Schools should change their mantra to learning institutions. You're there to learn. My brother was studying at 9:30 at night once. And my dad walked in and goes, "What are you doing?" My brother said, "Well, I'm studying for a test." My dad said, "Well, why study? You'll never remember it. You go to school to learn." And I honestly, God, I don't think these teachers ever knew I was paying attention, but I was.
Paul, what is something that you believe that most people disagree with you on?
Well, I have a fervent belief that I hate Donald Trump. Absolutely. Every bone of my fiber.
I think some people would agree, some people would disagree, you know.
I'll still tell them I think he's a horrible human being and I don't like him, but I don't give a shit. There's 3 discussions you don't want to have in life.
Okay.
Donald Trump is one of them. Middle East,
Hey, you brought it up, Paul, not me.
Middle East politics is the second, and the third is abortion. No one's going to say, "Oh, wow, Paul, that was such a good point. I'm going to change my mind." No one does that. Senseless conversations. But you ask me what I fervently believe. I think he's a horrible thing for our country.
What do you think? Let's get in. I want to go down this route. What do you think is the biggest threat to the United States of America over the next few decades?
I think the United States is actually an impediment to the real problem. I'm a human being and I care about people. Our environment is about to kick our ass, and we're fighting silly little wars and bickering over this, that, and the other. I think the United States is actually getting in the way of solving and nationalism. I think the rise of nationalism is a real evil thing. And we're picking too many damn fights with Russia and China. I think we ought to get more towards world order, globalization, and really start putting a lot of our resources back to the environment. I truly worry about your guys' children. And that's what you should be worried about.
Wow.
So I have recently decided I've subordinated the United States to my belief that I'm a citizen of the world and I care about people. And the United States, in many ways, is in a
conflict with that.
That's my philosophy as well. I consider myself a member of the human race, and my loyalty is to humanity.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think are the biggest trends or opportunities in business right now, given the state of the world? I know we talked about heating last time we spoke. What are some other trends?
Oh, I saw a cool thing on TV. I don't know. You see everything all the time. I see opportunity. Why the hell are these buildings enclosed? Why do they have windows where you can't open up the windows? Like I'm in California. Why don't we have buildings with windows?
It's a good question.
Liability.
He won the national award for all the architects. He builds buildings that got this thing over the side that the windows can open up and they can adapt to heater and colder just with this like a solar panel or something. And it just seemed like a very efficient way to do a building. But I don't think we can have the luxury of building in the old style that we used to. I mean, I like fresh air. What's the novelty of that? I don't know. I see it all the time. I'm just looking. My whole gestalt is about opportunity. Down here, over here in Montecito, they have all these restaurants you can't park your car. And this guy has a big parking lot with 200 spots. I know him. Why does he get a high school put in there to charge $20 a night to park your car? That's $2,000 a night for 100 spots. And it's money to be made right now. No, I see things all the time. My whole mind always works like that. Can there be a system in the computers? How can I lead generate more efficiently? Where's my sweet spot in lead generating? Do you study each other as a sweet spot? As the sweet spot for your business, law firms for lead generating and malpractice lawsuits? Where is it? Have you ever, I don't know, there'd be a lot of things in your business you could probably figure out. But if you can do lead generating, you can just about do anything. That's marketing at its max. You guys know customers. You should be making a fortune with all that.
Guys, we have about 10 minutes left. Any other questions you want to ask? I'm going to leave it to all the people here, whoever wants to ask any final questions.
Yeah, I got a
People-
question. We're all, CEOs, just
I'll
like
go
you
to
said
Curtis
that
next.
you're motivating, right? You were an owner and you manage CEOs, and we're all kind of like CEOs, or a lot of us anyways. What did you tell your CEOs? Like, how did you manage them and motivate them? And what was the indicator that they were doing something right? And how did you help them get there?
I shared the profits. I told you about that. One of the things I always reminded people of is that the work we did helped humanity, helped with people figuring out how to make it a better world. And it was a true and people saw that connection. So you got to take your mission of what you do. Now here's a lady, we used to have a lady that opened up envelope for the accounts receivable department. All she did is go like this, fill out deposit slips. Now, how is she going to feel connected to what our work was? So I did a lot with photography, and I had little things around their office that reminded people of the good work, we're doing for humanity. And people go to work to smile. So you have a lot of photos with people smiling. But you can manage their environment. I managed the environment. I didn't manage people.
Curtis, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. And thank you so much, Paul. This has been incredibly helpful. Also, hello from just down the road in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
But
You live in Santa Barbara?
I do, yes. I'm over by Hope Ranch off of Modoc, so real close. But I love what you're saying about really being purpose-driven and focusing on helping make the world a better place. That's one of my big motivations with entrepreneurship. Obviously, when you have more resources, you have more power to make a bigger difference. And you see a lot of businesses that are taking kind of taking a stance. For a lot of them, it's just a gimmick, though, to make money, I'm sure. But have you, let me think how to phrase this. Is there a good way, or if you were to want to start a business to make a difference, have a purpose-driven business, how would you, I guess, frame that, or how would you go about doing that in order to get other people on board so they can impact more lives?
Well, yeah. Who's your customer?
So I work in lead generation, and primarily for.
Yeah.
So I help people primarily in the health and fitness industry,
Okay.
and wellness and weight loss.
Do you play up the angle of a healthier world and fitness? That we're making the world a more fit planet? Do you play? That's a nice slogan for your people inside. A lot of times people think they're marketing, it's always to the outside, but really it's to your own people. So you're helping people become healthier. We're the health company. You're not just lead generating, we're helping people with health. Do something that's lofty.
I like that.
Thank you.
Simple. Jordan, I know we have 6 minutes left. Jordan, go for it.
Hey, thanks for doing this. But yeah, I have a question. You mentioned like you lead, you change the environment, you lead the environment, not the people. I kind of have a similar question just in terms of your parenting with your children. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, so I'm curious how you lead your children into making good decisions, maybe in context to the environment side of things. Like, how did you control the environment at home for your kids?
Do you allow your children watch the news?
No, I don't even watch the news.
Why?
Well, mostly because I believe it's like you watch both. The truth is somewhere in the middle, so you kind of gotta
And so
make
you
your
don't
own
know-
decisions.
The news is the elixir of life. Now, I always object to parents to say, "Oh, it's so violent. I can't let my children watch all that violence." And I keep going, "Look, you ever looked at that crucifixion up there? Was that a little violent?" Children need to be exposed to the real world and the news. And I don't think necessarily CNN or Fox, but if you could get a good news source like the BBC, public television at night, you can get some good objective stories. But every child should be exposed to current events. It's I would think my children, when they were 5 years old, I asked them a question at the dinner table. Do you think we should have capital punishment? Do you think that if someone kills somebody, should they? And it was interesting. They just looked at the world. But I would definitely get your daughter more involved in current events.
And as your kids grew up, when it comes to like entrepreneurship, did you push them in any sort of direction, like go to school, get a job, or, you know, become an entrepreneur? And how did you support them in whatever decisions they made?
They all went to college. They had good jobs and they saved their money. I don't know how, other than that, I always would say, I compliment them a lot, but they know. But they knew I frowned upon garish, look at me cars, and that extravagance for the sake of extravagance wasn't my kind of thing. I mean, there's two kinds of people and how they define themselves. Some people define themselves with all the things they have or who they are. So I always try to emphasize who you are, not what you have. It's more important.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I do think it's important to raise children with religion. I'm not religious now. I'd have my kids in religion.
Was that more so for the structure, you would say?
Oh, consequence. I mean, if you do something really wrong, you're going to burn an eternity forever. You think that's a little consequence?
Yeah.
So,
well, Paul, it's been a pleasure having you. This has been absolutely incredible. What I'd like everyone to do is unmute themselves and just give Paul a round of applause as a thank you.
thank you. You guys
Rock and roll.
take care. Thank you for having me.
Paul, that
Thank
was
you.
amazing. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Take care. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.